Good afternoon, evening, morning, and assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our virtual event today. Meet Dr. Sima Samar, who will be talking about her new memoir, Outspoken, My Fight for Freedom and Human Rights in Afghanistan. It is an honor to have Dr. Samar with us today. We have a very diverse audience from all around the world who have joined us despite the difference in time. I want to welcome you all and thank you for attending from Afghanistan, Australia, Denmark, France, Indonesia, Italy, Northern Ireland, Pakistan, Romania, and United Kingdom, and Sweden and Iran. This is only an indication of the importance of the book in discussion today and the impact of the work that Dr. Sima Samar has done during her career in Afghanistan for the people of Afghanistan. It is good to have you all with us today. Just to give you an introduction of the organizations involved in this event, I want to thank Saki Books, based in the UK, the publisher, who helped us arrange this event. I want to thank team members of the Hazara Committee, formerly known as the Hazara Council of Great Britain, which is a community-based charity organization working to create an inclusive platform for all Hazara communities across the UK to connect, to cooperate, and integrate into a wider society. In HCUK, we are committed to nurturing equality, inclusivity, peace, and unity. Since 2013, we have been supporting our community members in a variety of ways, from hosting educational and cultural events to philanthropy works for Afghanistan, along supporting Hazara refugees and individuals within our communities in the UK and around the world. I want to thank the Hazara Heritage, who is a registered non-profit in Canada, founded by Gul Bahar, who is here today, which preserves and promotes the history, culture, and the story of the Hazara people. The main activities are showcasing the history, heritage, and accomplishments of the Hazaras, because they aim to inspire, educate, empower Hazara youth around the world. Hazara Heritage is a place for us to center the Hazara identity, history, and culture, to reflect on our collective past and to dream a new future for the Hazaras. I want to pass you on now to Gul Bahar from the Hazara Heritage, who will give you an introduction of the book and the publishers across the world, mainly in the UK, Canada, and the United States, and how can you purchase this book to read. Gul Bahar, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Karimi, for the introduction. I also want to thank the Hazara Committee UK for organizing this amazing event. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, it is with great honor and privilege to introduce a very remarkable book that embodies the relentless pursuit of freedom and human rights in the face of immense adversity. Outspoken, My Fight for Freedom and Human Rights in Afghanistan is a powerful testament to the indomitable spirit of one woman, Dr. Sima Samar, in her courageous journey alongside the esteemed journalist Sally Armstrong. I'm just going to give a short introduction. Of course, Dr. Sima Samar, we know her, but just for formality's sake, I'm just going to give a short introduction and then go on to introduce the book. Dr. Sima Samar is a doctor, human rights activist, and humanitarian who has spent her life in the service of the people of Afghanistan. She was born in Jowhari, Ghazni in 1957. She went on to finish her medical degree at the University of Kabul and went on to practice at a government hospital till she was forced to flee to her native Jowhari during the Soviet invasion. She continued her work and provided healthcare in the remote regions of central Afghanistan. Only a few years later, when her husband and his family members were arrested by the authorities, she fled to Pakistan with her young son. In Pakistan, she worked at the Mission Hospital to provide healthcare to refugees. After seeing the lack of healthcare for Afghan refugees, she established a healthcare clinic called Shuhada Clinic and the Shuhada Organization. In 2002, she decided to return to Afghanistan after the Taliban regime was toppled. She served in President Karzai's interim government and then was appointed to become the minister for the newly created post of Women's Affairs. She became just the sixth and the first Hazara woman to serve as cabinet minister. During this time, she further expanded the scope of the Shuhada organization to provide services to remote provinces in central Afghanistan. In 2010, she founded Gauhar Shad University to accommodate the needs of a growing number of students who required high quality but affordable education. She also became the first chair of the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission and held the post until 2019. In Outspoken, we are invited to witness firsthand the extraordinary courage and unwavering determination of Dr. Samar as she faces seemingly insurmountable challenges. From her early days as an uber-curious little girl to a medical student to finally her pivotal role in establishing groundbreaking institutions such as the Shahada Organization and Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, Dr. Samar's journey is nothing short of inspirational. Her story constantly reminds us that even one person has the power if they refuse to remain silent in the face of injustice. I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in saying this, but Dr. Sima Samar has been my hero my whole life. When I was a little girl in Pakistan, I used to watch her on TV, giving speeches, attending events, working for the service of the people of Afghanistan. Of course, at that time, I wasn't aware of Afghanistan's history or the history of the Hazara people, but I knew that Dr. Samar holding positions in the government as a woman and as a Hazara was unique and special. While reading this book, I was reminded of a quote that's attributed to Isaac Newton. He states that, "If I have seen further than others, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." We can safely say that we and thousands of others are standing where we are because of the work of people like Dr. Sima Samar. She has touched hundreds of thousands of lives with her service in healthcare, education, and advocating for human rights. Her book is a rallying cry for all to get inspired to speak in favor of equality, freedom, and human dignity. Her book is a call to action for us to speak out against oppression, challenge societal norms that no longer serve us, and to work hard towards a world where we can all live in peace and dignity. We live in a time of crises with uncertainty and turmoil, but her book is a reminder of the power of hope and courage. As we embark on this journey through the pages of Outspoken, may we be inspired to join hands in the pursuit of a more just and compassionate world for all. That's the conclusion of my introduction. I also just wanted to let everyone in the audience know that Sophie Books is the UK publisher of Outspoken, and they have offered a 25% discount for all purchases made through their website with the code HCUK25. You can pre-order your copy on their bookssophie.com, and it's also published by Random House Canada in Canada, and obviously Penguin Random House in the USA. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it back to Karime to start the main portion of discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gulbahar, for that amazing introduction with a personal touch. Before I start my question, please be aware that this session is being recorded. It will be on YouTube and Sophie YouTube as well, and our social media platforms as well. So for those who are trying to record it, please, you can access those through our social media, so you don't have to record it now. Dr. Samar, you've dedicated this book to the people who have lost their lives and whose graves remain unmarked as a result of 45 years of war in Afghanistan. To the women of Afghanistan who live under a regime of gender apartheid, and to all those who suffer from patriarchy and gender-based violence worldwide. You've dedicated your career and life to the people of Afghanistan, as in your book you've said, "My fight for the freedom and human rights in Afghanistan." Similar to Gul, when I was a little kid in remote villages of Ghazni province in Afghanistan, I couldn't read or write. There were only a few families who owned radios out of 400 families in my villages. And I had heard your name, Sima Samar, which goes to show, the significant impact of your work in Afghanistan. So my first question to you is, why now? What made you take the decision to publish the book now? And, what is the significance of this book to your audience, considering what is happening in Afghanistan right now?
Thank you very much. Thank you for Guljan for introduction, and thank you for organizing this program. Well, I was thinking that I will write the book when I have time. So when I decided to write the book, I didn't have the official job, so that was a good time to start the book because I spent all of my life, or 45 years of my life, particularly in struggle in order to promote human rights in Afghanistan and also calling for justice to the people. So that was the day that I decided firmly that I'm going to write the book was the day, unfortunately, when the attack was happened on Sayyid Shuhada School in Kabul. So, and then, of course, after that, and you all know that it was the COVID and the ban on traveling and everything. So I decided to come to the US to see my family because I couldn't travel during the COVID with all the restriction. I came in June 2021 here. And then, unfortunately, I was here when the regime collapsed in Afghanistan, and I was not believing that the regime will collapse so quickly. And it was so sad because I had an interview with a magazine in Brussels 3 days before the collapse.
Yeah.
And the journalist asked me, "Do you think that the regime will collapse?" I said, "No, not at all, because the people of Afghanistan doesn't want the Taliban." So after the collapse, the journalist was calling me and trying to publish the story, the interview. And I said, "Don't publish it because what I said was not correct."
Yeah.
So then I was forced to stay in the US, unfortunately. I was traveling in this country from 1989 and also to European country. And I was not thinking that I will be in a position to apply for asylum in this age.
Right.
I mean, I had the possibility to come to this country and live in this country. But anyway, I refused to do that. So then when I was staying here, then I decided that I should what I started, that I should complete it. And it took actually almost 2 years and I wrote maybe, I don't know how many thousands of words, but this book is currently 90,000 or around 100,000 words. But I think I wrote maybe 800,000 or even more. And then to pick up some of the stories from those I wrote and put it as a book. And since I knew Sally, I spoke with Sally, and she was agreed to help me with the writing of the book in English. Of course, it's not an easy for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the book is out, and as you said, that I dedicated the book not to my husband or to my son or to my family or to my mother. I dedicated the book to the people who were victims of injustice in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that brings me to the next question. You've written a book about your life, the challenges that you faced, the struggles you had to go through in Afghanistan at that time, fighting for the freedom and human rights of everyone in Afghanistan. I can't imagine what was the process of writing the book for you, because it is simply a review of what you've been through, the struggles and difficult times, that you don't feel or believe how difficult it is at that time. But now you go through it, the things that you've been through, the struggles and the challenge, you look at it now, many years ago. What was the process of writing the book for you, emotionally and psychologically?
Yeah. Well, it was not easy. It was really difficult because there were some days that I was discussing with Sally different different stories or different part of the book. And as you said, that it was, I gone through the same sadness and the same problem that I faced
Yes.
during my journey in Afghanistan, during my life in Afghanistan. And then I was getting emotional during talking with Sally.
Yeah.
And she was writing back and she was saying that when I read because I was really sending her raw material. And I keep crying that how difficult the life was. But yes, that is the truth of my life. I mean, it did give me some sleepless night, but I wanted that to be recorded, particularly for the young generation of Afghanistan, because as you said, that people heard my name.
Yeah.
Or young girls heard my name, and some people who comment and say that, yeah, she is as corrupt as the others, and she did this and that, or they are criticizing that I only worked in the Hazara area, which is true because even in the Hazara area was not easy. So let alone the people who knew me, who knew my father, who knew, I mean, we built the hospital in our personal private land, and as it was looted several times. So imagine to do it in some other places. And I tell to those people that if each of us build a school in our own village and do some positive work in our own village, Afghanistan will be constructed. Afghanistan will develop.
Yeah, of course.
Instead of criticizing who and yeah.
Yes. And in your book, you've talked about your personal life, your personal upbringing. You talk about your mother, Khurshid, who was the first wife of your father, going through the struggles of being a woman in Afghanistan. And you spend most of your early childhood with your mother when your father had to go to Lashkar for work. Um, it, in your own words, you were a toddler, a little baby when your father left for Lashkar for work. Your mother had to deal with and look after the family in Jawari. Uh, and that was the time when you become sort of curious about the unfairness towards a woman in Afghanistan, and you started questioning polygamy, um, the unfairness in being a woman. First point, what sort of impact did that have in your life, in your upbringing, and the way you looked back then in Afghanistan? And was there an absence of, a father figure in your childhood life, that your father was away when you were in a little baby in Jawari?
Well, yes and no. Yes, because my uncle, I mean, the culture, the families are living together. My elder uncle, he was really very kind, and I never feel that I miss my father. And my father was coming twice a year, and they were explaining because he's working there and he has to earn. So that was kind of understandable. But later on, when we came, um, I saw that my uncle, elder uncle, also had two wives, but a lot of other people did not have a two wife in that small village that we were living, because it was my father and my uncle. So that was kind of for the family was kind of a pride to have two wives, but for me it was questionable that why the other people has one wife and why my father has two or my uncle has two. But anyway, when I saw the differences between, in any case, my sister engagement and her death, I mean, I was quite young. I was not understanding, but I was looking at her that she was crying during her wedding,
Yeah.
and I thought maybe it's common. Every bride was crying, because I saw my cousins when they were leaving home, they were crying. So I thought maybe it's common. I didn't understand the whole
Yeah, have we lost her? Zarifa, can you hear me?
And how she was, although my father tried to convince his brother and his brother nephew, mainly my uncle actually, to not to marry her, but my uncle got very angry, and the whole thing, the whole structure of the family and brotherhood was preferred to be. And then my sister she actually accepted the sacrifice in order to keep the family relation and my uncle's and my father's relation.
Yeah,
And
and
that was painful, yeah.
I'll come to that later on because as a child I've seen that in my village when I was in Afghanistan where uh, girls get married without their permission or without them being consulted, and it leads to a life of unfortunate. But during your childhood, you've mentioned something that I resonate with. You've mentioned that when you saw the police, you ran as fast as you could, even despite your father's assurance that no one will ever take you, my daughter, and I quote. But still, you have said in your book that you never lost the distrust of the police. Um, I guess my question is that what were the circumstances in those days that led to this fear of the police instead of, feeling safe and protected? And why do you think we were still scared of the police even when during the presidency of Karzai and Ashraf Ghani? And I myself have lived in, and many people who are listening to us have lived in Kabul, Afghanistan. Instead of feeling safe and protected when the police arrives, you feel scared and you run away. But for example, living in the United States and the UK, it's the other way around. You feel safe and protected. Where does that fear come from in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I think it is two issues that I wanted that to be mentioned. One, I think there was a government, although it was in Sangamosha and it was quite far. It was not like today is that everybody have a car and the street is smoother and the people between Sangamosha and Sepoya maybe 35 minute
Yeah.
drive. On that time, the people were walking. But it was police and it was they were able to find people. So the rumor spread in the village that the government started school for the girls. And the police is taking the girls to the school. So I was afraid that the police will take me to the school. So that was my fear. And also, when the police was coming to the village, the people were scared because whom they really came into to take them by force to the army service or to they committed something, so they will be in jail. So that was my fear. And they were really, I didn't witness if they beaten somebody or punished somebody, but there was kind of a fear within the community from the police. And I think that the other reason is that in recent years that the people do not trust the police is that the corruption within the police
Yeah.
was the reason that the people were not trusting the police. And we spend a lot of time on training the police and adding the human rights and international human rights and humanitarian law within the police and army curriculum. But of course, most of the people who joined the police was not able to read and write, and that was kind of a
Unfortunately.
obstacle and bottleneck on training the police.
Yeah, I've personally, and I know many people in the call have, experienced going to Afghanistan and then, running away when the police comes, instead of feeling safe and protected. But again, sorry to bring this up. You've talked about your close family, in the book. one particular point was about your sister, Aziza, and this about, deals being agreed between parents when the children are little toddlers, the promise being made to marry one's daughter to one's son once they grow up. Your sister Aziza was, one of those kids that had to marry somebody's son, and she wasn't happy about it, but she still had to marry to the agreement made. And even though when your father wasn't happy about it, he had to listen to his brother, the elder in the family. Um, Now, I see two questions or two problems in there. One, the tradition, the deals that Bisham made in Afghanistan, that parents promise their daughter to somebody's son when they're little kids, and to get married to them when they grow up. Second challenge is, listening and abiding by the decision made by the eldest of the family, regardless of whether they're educated, competent or not, but they still had to listen to them. And that led to many problems and challenges in Afghanistan. Can you tell us more about these traditions, and where do they come from, and how they became part of the Afghan culture in our society?
Well, I don't know where it came from, but I do understand when it's a patriarchy system. Although my mother and my father both of them were sick, I'm not sure if they were serious. So when she was crawling to come to my mother, then my father asked the sister-in-law, who was his cousin also, and say that, could you take care of her? Maybe my cousin was only 5 years old. The other one, Yusuf, who my sister was married to her.
Yeah.
Then I will give her to Yusuf. If it was serious, I'm not sure, because I don't remember that my uncle was, or the family was sending like clothes for Eid or for Nowruz, which is common within the region, within the culture in that part. But when they decided that we go to Helmand, and the actual aim was for my uncle to marry my sister to his son, because his son already done the army
service,
and also he got a job in Helmand. So,
and is that when you found out that the purpose of moving to Helmand was to get them married?
Yeah, when we went to Lashkargah, then of course my uncle said that it's time for them to get married, because my sister, I think she was 17 or 18, I don't remember exactly, but she was not happy. And then it took whole week, the discussion between my uncle and my father. Then my uncle got angry and he wanted to leave the house, and then the neighbor interfered. Anyway, we see that still today in different parts of Afghanistan and Hazara also. That kind of imposition of those, maybe even joking, but at least during the Republic, it was the possibility that those, for the one who got education, they knew that they cannot force them to, because there were some mechanism in place to protect those girls from this kind of forced marriage. But on that time, long ago, it's almost 58 years ago.
Yeah.
50, 60 years ago. It was not easy. 60 years ago, 61 years ago. It was not easy. Yeah.
But do you think that culture has changed in the past 20 years, especially when foreign forces were in Afghanistan and they got rid of the Taliban? Do you think there's been a massive change overall in Afghanistan, that getting rid of those traditions?
I think the change is coming to society through education. Yes, a lot has been changed. I mean, the first time in the history of Afghanistan, we have the elimination of violence against women law.
Yeah.
That was criminalized the domestic violence. And for first time, we had We had the Ministry of Women's Affairs, and first time we had the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, which was really protecting human rights of the people, protecting and promoting human rights of the people. And the important part of the Human Rights Commission was monitoring of the situation of human rights. So it was taken serious, actually.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Human Rights Commission in Afghanistan. Your role as the Human Rights Commissioner in the country like Afghanistan, and the reason I say a country like Afghanistan is because you've mentioned in your book that you had 3 strikes against you. And I quote, I have 3 strikes against me. I'm a woman. I speak for women, and I am Hazara, the most persecuted ethnic group in Afghanistan. So, first question for the sake of audience, who are born and raised in the West, who are not familiar with the Human Rights Commission in Afghanistan. What were the role of Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission in Afghanistan, and what were their main objectives at the time when you were the commissioner?
Yeah, the establishment of a National Institution for Human Rights was part of the Bonn Agreement, which was decided on 5th of December 2001 in Bonn. And the National Institution of Human Rights in any country, when they have to be established and be according to the Paris Principle, which is a kind of a principle that when they establish the National Institution for Human Rights, that should be according to Paris Principle. And the Paris Principle, there are few things that it should be independent from the government, and it should be inclusive, and it should be also run by people who are committed and who believe on human rights in the country. So that is what was the case in Afghanistan. And particularly currently after this peace agreement in most of the countries, they promote the establishment of a National Institution of Human Rights. So we were also one of those. And then currently it's 120 country has a National Institution of Human Rights, but not all of them fully compliant with the Paris Principle. When we established, I think we were tried to be fully compliant with Paris Principle, and that's why we had the A status within the global Alliance of National Institution for Human Rights. So we had the A status, and some of the National Institution of Human Rights, even in the European countries, they don't have the A status. Like a few years ago, Finland Human Rights Commission didn't have the A status, but the Human Rights Commission of Afghanistan had the A status and and being respected within the National Institution of Human Rights in the region and also outside of Afghanistan. And we did a lot of good work on promotion and protection of human rights in Afghanistan, compared to the situation that we were in Afghanistan.
Yeah, and that's my next question now. You become the Human Rights Commissioner in a country with a lot of problems. Women is considered inferior to men, and they're not given any power or authority in the world. Some even then, women were not allowed to go to school or colleges or pursue higher education. With all those challenges, what projects did you prioritize for Afghanistan? Looking on your table, you've got loads and loads of projects. What was the most important thing for you?
Yes. Yeah, I think what we did actually, we decided to do whatever is needed in Afghanistan. We should not copy like the human rights, what the Human Rights Commission or National Institution of Human Rights in Germany is doing or in Denmark is doing, for example. Just to give you an example, because both of them has a national institution and both of them has A status. So we did first issue, that department that we established, was the human rights education, because one of the problem in Afghanistan was the lack of awareness about human rights. Because if you don't know your human rights, you don't fight for it, and you do not respect the other people's rights. So that was the biggest program that we had. And then we had the child rights, because the situation of children in Afghanistan is quite difficult. We had Women's Rights Department, and then we had Monitoring and Investigation Department, including a specific special investigation team that were focusing on the civilian casualties in violation of international humanitarian and human rights law. And also then we had the rights of the people with disability, because we have a lot of disabled people in Afghanistan, and their rights were not really protected and promoted enough. So we had those different departments, and then under that department, then we had sub actions that what should be done in order to promote human rights in Afghanistan. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Afghanistan is one of those countries which, unlike, not trying to compare Afghanistan with a country in the West. There's no incentives for children. There's no incentives for people with disability. There's no opportunity, an organization to help and educate people to find jobs, unfortunately. And especially when it comes to educating women in Afghanistan in a patriarchal society. So in a country ruled by men, what sort of challenges you faced? I'm sure you're faced with a lot of challenges on duty as a human rights commissioner. On a societal level, how did the sort of corruption look like in Afghanistan? And my second part of the question is, how did you push back? How do you fight with those corruption, those who are trying to stop you doing the good work in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I think it was the Human Rights Commission was accepted at large by the society.
Yeah.
But some of the powerful people who did not like Sima Samar's style, or my call for justice, or my call for accountability, they didn't like, and they were really trying to block. But we resist, actually. We didn't really paid much attention to just to change our policies or action plan according to their call. Because we said, whatever you want to say, you say. We promote freedom of expression and freedom of media and freedom of speech. So, but we resist. I think that was the reason that we were able to continue the work. Otherwise, it was a lot of pressure. I remember that I had one interview with one of these Tulu television, and he said that you have a lot of powerful enemy. I said, I'm not their enemy. Their enemy is their action. They're afraid from their own action in the past. That's why they are against Sima Samar. I don't have any army. I don't have any militia, and I don't use gun also. But that is true.
Yeah. Well, how do you challenge against an idea like that? Having powerful enemies, you mentioned. I know the Taliban asked you to close some of the girls' schools, and you said no. And then they said, we're going to kill you. Give you death threats, and in the face of those challenges, and your answer was, okay, hang me in the public and tell them what my crime was, educating people and giving them pen and pencil to get educated. How did that make you feel? Because when I think about it, it's not only you at risk. You have to think about your family. You have to think about the schools. You have to think about the people that work with you and the people that work for you. How did you challenge with that? Because they could have killed you or closed your schools, burned your schools, and nobody would have asked, what, in a country like Afghanistan.
Yeah, I think one of the good part, maybe one of the success, was that I was among the people and I knew the people. Although it was, of course, a lot of commanders didn't like me, but I had the masses with me.
The people, yeah.
And Jowhari, for example, when they wanted to close the school, the people, the fathers and the family members went to the Taliban and said that, show us where there's no, where there's a proof in Quran or anywhere
Yeah.
that the girls cannot get education. But then we, of course, we change our policy. We use different style of hiding our work. And yes, but there were a lot of other member of the Taliban. Now, of course, I was not doing any inquiry about their the way they were thinking or about their political relationship. But there were a lot of them who were bringing their family member to the hospital, and some of them were really saying that we really like you because you protect our honor.
Yeah.
Namus umarım. Okay. They were saying namus umarım. Okay. Anyway, that's in Persian. I don't know what's the word in the namus in English.
Honor, family honor or something. Yeah, but did you ever think that, you know what, in the face of these challenges, you know, I'm gonna go away and be a doctor, you know, live my life like any other leader in Afghanistan, you know, be a part of the corruption rather than solve the problem. Did that ever come to your head?
Well, I think the reason that when they put me as a Minister of Women's Affairs, because I was lobbying for women inclusion, not for myself. I mean, that person unfortunately died, who was the special representative of United Nations in Afghanistan, Vandrel, Francis Vandrel, he was from Spain, actually.
Yeah.
And I flew to Islamabad and talked to him. I said that you have to add women in the beginning of the process for the new Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Because we already had the Mujahideen government who denied completely women. I mean, there were no women at all, because it will be more difficult once they establish. And I clearly told him, not Sima Samar. Frankly, I said, not Sima Samar. I'm not here to lobby for myself. When they put me in the cabinet, then I thought that I have to accept it. Otherwise, they will say that she's just shouting, and then she will not take the responsibility.
Yeah.
So I took the responsibility. And then when I was also the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission, when there were public discussion or interviews with the media, I was saying that I'm willing to go through a test, that I'm not, I have enough knowledge and capability as the other ministers, or maybe more than some of them.
Yeah.
So I took the risk.
And as the diaspora listening to you right now, with your experience with what is happening in the world right now in Ukraine and Israel and Palestine, it has taken the attention, the cameras away from Afghanistan. There's not much talks about Afghanistan as there should be. Based on your experience, how can the diaspora outside Afghanistan, you know, record, document, and report what is happening in Afghanistan? What is the most effective way to do that, to bring that to the attention of the world?
Well, I think we all have the responsibility to advocate for keeping Afghanistan on the agenda of the international community, because Afghanistan is a collective failure. I keep saying that it is the failure of people of Afghanistan, the failure of the government, for sure, and also the failure of international community who were involved in Afghanistan. So to ignore the issue and the problem in Afghanistan is not going to help the problem in Ukraine or in Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
That's one issue. The second point is that we have to call for accountability and justice. Justice, for me, doesn't mean that we should put people behind the bar or execute them. Justice to acknowledge and try to heal the wound of the victims. And I keep saying that the revenge is not justice. We should lobby for justice, not revenge. Because revenge killing people, it will be more blood and more hatred and continuation of the violence in the country. So I think we need to keep Afghanistan in the agenda.
Yeah.
And we should not forget that the problem that women face or the minority face in Afghanistan is not only a problem of women in the country, it's a problem of every household. It's a problem of every father, every brother, every son, every husband. And I'm surprised, to be very honest and frank, that where are the Afghan men?
Good question.
And what's happened to them? Yeah, what's happened to them?
Yeah. Moving to a different topic. You've lived before and after. I don't know if I can call it the invasion of Afghanistan by the West, the NATO and ISAF forces and other forces in Afghanistan. There's a debate that it was a failed operation over 20 years. Whatever was achieved during that 20 years went down the drain after the Taliban took over Afghanistan. But considering that, the life expectancy in Afghanistan has improved, the literacy rate in Afghanistan has improved. As a student going to my Oud Education Center in Afghanistan, I noticed people coming from Bamyan, Daikundi, Behzud, and all over the country to study in Kabul. And women got educated, they got allowed to go to school, go to education in positions of power, became doctors and engineers. Um, you know, and on a personal level, in my village, we started having schools. I started having clinics, and females started going to schools. What is your thought on that? Was the 20 years of operation in Afghanistan actually a failed operation? Can we call it a failed operation?
Well, it is yes and no. No, because we achieved a lot.
Hmm.
We achieved a lot, as you said, that at least we had demands from all over Afghanistan, even from very conservative part of the country,
Yeah.
For a girls' school. I don't forget when the elder from Shinwar, who came to my office in 2002, early when we didn't have much, actually late 2002, and they were asking for a girls' school. Or for example, when we had the Loya Jirga, and it was a lot of accusation on me that I'm not good Muslim and so on. And there were powerful people lining up and calling Sima Samar to step down, although I won the election.
Mhm.
And one elderly man from Paktia, he came to me and said that watching you, that we in our village, we decide to shot a gun when girl born, because we were used to fire a gun when there was a boy
Yeah.
born in the village. So now we are going to change it to fire a gun for the girls,
Yeah.
because you showed how capable are women. And that is something I think. And also when I went to Uruzgan in one trip, and the people from Shura Ulama, from provincial council, from the Bazar kind of a council,
Yeah.
all of them men, all of them came and shook hand with me. It was interesting, no?
Yeah.
And they start asking that we don't have female teacher and female doctor. And I said clearly, I said, look, I'm coming from a province just beside you. It's not very advanced. And your daughter's mind is not smaller than my mind. You have to send your daughter to school to be a doctor, to be a female doctor and a female teacher. And these are not issues. And in one point, I was talking with President Karzai. I said, I'm willing to be the governor of Uruzgan, because we need to show to the people that what government is and what is good government can do. I think the failure is that we did not put much pressure on accountability and justice,
Yeah.
and also on not enough on good governance. any government, if they don't have support of their public, people will not survive. We
Yeah.
had the experience of Khalqin Parchamis, we had the experience of Mujahideen, we had the experience of the latest regime, the Republic, with the NATO presence in the country. And the corruption and nepotism and bad governance actually was the failure. So that's why I'm saying yes and no. We achieved a lot in that 20 years.
Definitely. Another sort of question that we ask in the West is, because you've lived in Afghanistan and worked in Afghanistan when Taliban took over Afghanistan 2 times. You've witnessed the second time they've done it in 2021. Many times you've been threatened to close your girls' schools or else they'll kill you. From a Taliban that was in 1998 that came up and said, you know what, Tajik should go to Tajikistan, Uzbek should go to Uzbekistan, and Hazara should go to graveyard. To the Taliban today, there's a debate whether Taliban 2.0 is any different. Do you think the Taliban has changed, considering that at the moment they're not allowing girls and females to go to school, get educated, or all the hard work that you and your team put in Afghanistan?
Well, I don't think they are changed, but I cannot deny the human changes also, because people are exposed to that new things and their new ideas and new opinion. But I don't think politically they are changed. We see the same thing as they do. Maybe there's not the fight as it was during 1998 to say that it was one of the Taliban leader who said that Tajiks should go to Tajikistan, the Uzbeks to Uzbekistan, and Hazaras to Gulistan. And that was almost the same situation. The way they forced the Hazaras to taking their land, the way they are not protecting enough, either if it's Daesh or non-Daesh, the attacks against the Hazaras continues, unfortunately. The discrimination, I mean, they reversed the constitution, which was given the possibility to the Shias and the Hazaras to exercise their personal status law. And that is not there anymore. So the freedom that they had during the Republic, they don't have anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know what, I mean, it's a different time. Technology is improved. Maybe that is one of the reasons that they strain themselves a little bit, not to go on that level of violence. But I don't see much changes.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the fear that people have and used to have was that when the Taliban took over Afghanistan, they were being nice. They're saying that we've changed. We're no longer the Taliban we used to be. Is there a reason? Do you think the reason that they do that, not being nice but trying to look nice, is because they want to get a sort of legitimacy, be considered or recognized as a legitimate government by the West, and then once they're recognized as a government, they start doing their things, the plan that they have in Afghanistan. Is legitimacy of their government a major part of their agenda to look nice?
Well, I think that was they were clever enough to advocate for that. And even I heard from a lot of people, including Khalilzad, when he was saying that the Taliban are changed. They're not. I mean, in one point he said it's a simple Afghan villagers. It is not simple Afghan villagers, because I lived in Helmand and I saw the simple Pashtun villagers. They were not aggressive and violent and completely against every modernity. So I think they were successful on that. And of course, again, so the corruption and lack of good governance and lack of justice, which facilitate the Taliban to take over.
Right. And one thing that we need as the new generation, you mentioned in your when we were talking in Farsi, what do you expect people like us, the new generation in diaspora, to do about Afghanistan? Um,
Well, I think I'm glad that you are all safe, first of all, and please use the opportunity that you have. Get knowledge, because knowledge is a capital that nobody can take from you.
mhm,
Even God forbid, if they put you in jail, they cannot take the knowledge from your mind. And that is one point. The second point, I think, please continue advocacy. Don't forget your roots, because you have your roots in Afghanistan. Yes, maybe you and your immediate family will be in Western countries and safe and live in a better environment and situation.
mhm.
But still, you have your cousins and your blood over there.
Yeah.
So thirdly, I think, um, try to use every possible means to advocate about the situation in Afghanistan, because the human rights situation and the situation of women is really very, very bad, much worse than what we see and hear from the media.
Mm,
So continue and keep Afghanistan in the agenda, because ignoring Afghanistan will give possibility for more extremist and terrorist activities in Afghanistan and outside Afghanistan, because when Taliban took over Afghanistan, patriarchy was empowered in Afghanistan and outside of Afghanistan. I mean, they are people like Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and other in Africa who says that if Taliban did it, why we cannot do it?
yeah.
So they are learning from each other. And so my final advice to the youth here is that outside of Afghanistan is that um, do some support, do support some families to and the girls in Afghanistan and boys also to get education. And that can be done with small donation by each one of you.
Mhm.
Just save the price of one Coke can per week and then send it to
Or a coffee.
Afghanistan, yes, or a coffee. Starbucks is $4, $5.
Yes, exactly. One of the questions I've been meaning to ask you is that you've inspired millions of people, especially the new generation in Afghanistan and across the world. And with this book they've written, millions more will be inspired. Is there a particular person in your life that motivated you, that kept you going during the challenges that you had throughout your career in Afghanistan? And that you, because of that person or because of that thing that you wanted to achieve, you kept going, you worked hard in the face of all those challenges.
Yeah, maybe the situation of my mother, she was not in a position to tell me what to do, because I mean, my mother was really a simple, uneducated woman
Mhm.
um, of Afghanistan. But uh, seeing her and her hard work actually put me in a position to stand and resist. It was not easy. I resist first against my family,
Yeah.
and then outside of the family, because family is your immediate and closer people to stop you from
Mhm.
some of the activities
Yeah.
or block you.
Yeah. Yeah. My final question to you is regarding the women in Afghanistan. For those women in Afghanistan who are probably listening to us or will listen to us after this recording has been shared on our social media pages, what do you say to them, for those who are not allowed to go to school or university or pursue their dreams? They have to stay home because they're a woman. They're not allowed. What is the message to them?
I think, again, the same message, that they should use every possible means in order to get education. They can read, they can use internet to learn a lot. So of course, school is a school. You learn more. It's a different environment, but they should use every possible means to learn. And I think I would say that and no matter how dark the night would be, it will be sun and dawn next morning.
Yeah.
Although sometimes there's cloudy for 4 months, but still the sun will come.
Yeah. Great. That's the end of my questions. Again, I want to thank you again for your time, for everything you've done for the people of Afghanistan. As Gul said, we are the product of your hard work. We've gone to school because of your hard work. Maybe visited a doctor 1 or 2 times in your clinics that we were little babies. We want to thank you on behalf of the Hazara Committee and Hazara Heritage and our audience for your hard work and dedication for the people of Afghanistan. We hope to see you sometime in the UK when you come here. The weather is
Thank you.
It's a lot rainy here and cloudy. But